mole rat and the fire gecko play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and my skin is not glowing all day.
Namaste, Pepe. Z tej strony i witam w kolejnym odcinku. Nie teraz. Cześć moi drodzy. Jak moje miłe mieszkanko, w którym się fajnie się człowieka wyrosła papryczka. Miło. Ja bym chciał. Nie wiem jak chciał. Działanie dokładnie. Napijmy się. Zdobyłem kombinezon, który więcej się wiesz. Kombinezon maskujący, który bada. Jest całkiem fajnie.
Hello, it's nice to meet you. Who can I hide you from today?
Bada chyba podobnie...
We're okay on Stimpaks.
O, miło. Bada z...
We're okay
No.
on Medex until we have to numb the pain.
Dobrze, cieszę się. Mówi podobnie detali z nasypeczka. Że to wynosi to ciasto. Zresztą patrzę jak zajebiście sypiając to wygląda. Nie wiem, co mi tam pisze. Później sprawdzę. Dobra, zameldujmy się doktorzowi Plainowi.
Did you retrieve the technologies yet? We need them, as I have indicated.
Mam wszystkie.
What? You did? Your survival, let alone success, barely registered in my projections. Now, all I need to do is check my transmission databank. Mobius is always filling it up with his psychotic calls. Oh yes, there's the schematics, just like you said. How truthful. Yes, yes. Yes,
No, ale...
No, I mean yes. You just need to analyze these technologies for a moment. They are extremely advanced, you know. I know how these technologies work. Of course I know. If you remember, we described them in clearly abstract, contradictory statements before. Why would we do that if we weren't certain on how to use them? Yes, so let me... a bit, I'll figure it out.
Lol. Czy wy ty naprawdę nic nie wiesz?
Yes, that's what I believe I said. I've got it. The cardiac regulator in the suit, the antenna for brain waves, and the sonic frequency for the vertebral nerves.
Ale...
I'm thinking. This is all very complicated. Let me check something. Of course. I have it. The override sequence to open the Forbidden Zone door is hidden in the schematics.
Yay!
Well, not hidden. It's actually right there, behind the programming equivalent of coffee stains. It's embedded in what seems to be recursive code. It's badly commented there and there. Oh, and null pointers very sloppy, Mobius. You see, using the antenna to boost the emitter's sonic frequency, and the stealth suit to bypass the Forbidden Zone lock, yes, that could work. Was that my plan? It must have been. Sometimes I truly surprise myself. The door is...
Fajnie, ale...
Biological? Ridiculous. I mean, technically, these items could all be used to put you back together once you had your brain. But for now, they can be used in the name of aggression. The door should be unsealed. Now, instead of being subjected to threats, we can now send an equally threatening and that message is science. Deliver this message, and Big Mountain shall be freed from Mobius. You can go now. That's your cue.
Aha. Dobra, wychodzimy. I wtedy banda dziwaków. Tak mądrych rzeźbniki.
Uh-oh. Injecting Stimpack.
Dziękuję.
Stop that! You'll damage the hull!
Dawaj ciapki. Polubiłem ten kombinezon. On chyba polubił mnie.
Injecting Stimpack.
Dziękuję.
Fighting over.
Dobra. Fajnie, że odkryłam to miejsce. Czyli przez przypadek.
Ready?
Time for violence! Scorpion! No time, minion! Sting them with eyeball scope!
Żyj to.
That's all. Who do you think is cuter, Dr. Klein or Dr. Gross?
Your goggles and take your rad X now. The X-42 giant robo-scorpion is alive! Awaken, my pet! Initiate your search and destroy protocol in the name of all that is Mobius!
Ups. To mi się nie podoba. Bardzo mi się nie podoba. Wielki, przyrośnięty skorpion. Dobra, weźmy. W sumie nie wiem co. Też. Czy było coś takiego? O. Dobra.
This one looks pretty tough.
Jep. To jest stali, mówię wam. Przynajmniej... Nie, jak mogli dać ten boss, ale... Nie, dam se...
An intruder is here. I'm certain of it. Ah, there's our victim.
Saturnino... Aha. Nie, ostrze względnie sobie... Okej, aha. Aha. Dać. Aha.
Oh, It looks like the target drone's got activated and you'll
Wow, on mnie kotuje. Wiecie co? Czekajcie, w ten sposób. A może...
X-42, attack in the name of Mobius! Crush them with your pincers!
Dobra. To jest się woda, muszę... Dobra, nie zwrócił uwagi.
Please take this. I don't want you to die.
Dobra. Przemieniewając ten plik. Tak. Jest.
That's all.
Jest. My god. Dobra. Tam jest potrzebna coś na... Nie wiem ile, ale... jeszcze... Nie wiem, to są te... ćwiczenia, co to w ogóle jest? To zwiedzajmy. Trochę. Fajnie. Czyżbyśmy... To jest wyjątkowe czucie. Trzymaj, że... O. Aha. Przy czym się rzeczywiście się przyda? Pewnie później. Dobra, najpierw chciał obejść to miejsce. Co w sumie dzieje? Czego? Też jest. O. Niestety nic dla mnie. Czy można pewnie było wyłączyć? I cóż? No już. To będzie mało istotne w tej chwili. To nie co tu jest. Aha. Tam z doktorem Mobiusem będziemy walczyć. Oj! Co tu jeszcze jest? Trzeba wejść nic. Tam byłem. Jeśli tu zajrzę. Nie byłbym ja. Nic istotnego. No, Steam Party. Dobra. Lol. No, może by się przypać. Premiery. Ja to mam. Słaby.
Are we being watched?
Tak, chyba ja.
Nobody ever notices me, but they notice the Pip-Boy light. Pip-Boy light's on.
Dzięki, wiem. Fajnie, że przypomniałeś.
Electrons attached to the neutrons attached to the meson's connected to the... Yo, hello there. You are there, aren't you? Forgive my confusion. So hard to tell these days. You seem familiar somehow. I'm guessing you're here for your brain, perhaps? It's just up there. Such a nice brain, young, very bright. Little hard to see you. Can you walk into my left, right FOV cone? Ah, that's it. You're coming into...
Lepiej?
Oh, well, that's good. Were we supposed to fight? I certainly don't feel violent, but, well, these contraptions make it hard to tell. Really? That implies preconceived notions, theories, and a hypothesis about this meeting? Please extrapolate. What was I supposed to be like? After all, it might be worth a cognitive realignment. Oh, a variety of reasons. You're something of a homily. The anomaly? You're really quite special, and not in the cranially challenged way. You see, you are the most successful brain extraction experiment ever performed here at Big Mountain. A victim of your... If you were to go back with what your brain knows about the procedure, well... Your brain could be popped back in and you could walk right out of here. Can't have brains moving around of their own volition. Now, that seems to be rather hormonal of you. Your brain is here, safe with me. We chat over mentats.
Aha. Ale?
Oh, curiosity. I experienced that less. The ghosts aren't real? That changes everything. Why, I can save my computing power for other perceptual impossibilities. Please be my guest. The receptor is there, and the side-switching wobbly bob, it just... Oh, yes, that feels wonderful.
Wiem, że bezpieczność.
Do you? You seem fine without it. And does it even want to go back with you? Maybe you should ask it. It's quite Tell you what, I'll leave it up to your brain. If it wants to go, then fine.
Zawsze jest samodzielny.
I find things curious as well. Go on. Oh, I was probably tripping hard on Psycho when I sent that. Had to work myself up to it. Not usually violent, except so many chems, such varieties. Whenever I take Mentats, I can feel my entire chassis As for the Psycho, sometimes get the chem dispositories in my tank all switched up. Go in the wrong tube. Yes, this is getting interesting.
Ciekawe.
Well, every scientist needs an army. Mine came to me after these rather large scorpions kept coming in. How scary, I thought. But they had survived when nothing else had. Then I thought, what if they shot energy bolts and acted as walking eyes and data-drained computers and acted as bullhorns? Then I made them bigger. Then I thought about custard. I do so love custard. Or was it mustard? Mustard custard. Did I? Maybe I did. Can't have them leaving. Some reason for it. Ethics or, conscience? You and your brain are quite alike. I'm sure it knows the rate.
Właśnie.
Dr. Mobius. Rather catchy, isn't it? It's my... This name's as real as you or I. Although I believe your brain expressed similar incredulity at the nature of such an appellation. Someone's been watching too many old-world science fiction movies, it said. I believe it meant me. I must admit I have a vulnerability for holotape fantasies of planets and robots and all that is forbidden. As for the name I was born with, like the think tank, we were all reprogrammed to forget them, take on new names. Now, trap is a rather harsh word, like excrement. Not an inappropriate word, but still rather harsh. But, yes, I did take some liberties with it. I certainly didn't until you said trap, and
Dobra.
the radar fence to keep the think tank hemmed in wasn't really enough. They keep testing things. They would have found a way to disarm it. I suspect I have Plan 9s in place, but I may have coded myself to forget them, just in case. They're probably very dangerous, lethal, or worse. So I had to do something else to keep them occupied here. Or as you like to say, trapped. I prefer to have... Oh, you figured it out. No pun intended. Dr. O, which is actually not his real name multiplied, since you can't multiply his real name in the first place. Ouroboros, Klein, They have all forgotten themselves. And not only themselves, but the world, sense of time and history. All that is left is what's here. I reprogrammed their chronometers, geometers, and cartography programs. This is now their world, here, Big Mountain. It was a merciful lobotomy, really, thinking back. They were my friend. And the world isn't ready for that kind of too-far thing-taking. That's my professional opinion, anyway.
No właśnie.
Really? It is so unlike me to make an error in anything I do. Well, it's simple. Despite their many failings, they are rather bright. They are the think tank for a reason. That I didn't change. Without something to distract them, make them afraid, they would simply deduce what had happened. And when they start deucing it up, then you came along, the final variable solved. They saw that their world was larger than they perceived. There have been other visitors to make them doubt their perceptions, but you are the one who dialed back their monitor micro. You were irrefutable proof that there was a world outside. And then there was the whole brain fiasco, which forced me to take steps. See, your brain had a special kind of wrinkle, a uniquity that they had never thought to try in all their countless escape attempts.
Aha. No właśnie.
Yes, very good. I should have mentats ingest you instead of the other way around. In any event, you showed up at the think tank, and because you had suffered a cranial injury in just the right place, bullets in the head are usually much more fatal, and yours was a light case of bullet headitis. But it was enough for the auto dock in the sink to change its programming to fix the problem. And the brain extraction technology for once worked. That gave the think tank the knowledge its brains couldn't possess. With that knowledge, the procedure can be reversed. If they obtain that procedural data, they can use it to mush and modify their cranial cells into hosts to slip past the radar fence. I'm sure of it. And once they're off the... I consider coincidence to be profanity, along with the words astrology, herbal tea, and luck. My threat broadcast is designed to instill and install fear, and along with the emotional download, it prompted them to focus on retrieving those technologies. And coincidentally, pardon my language, all those technologies are needed to...
Aha.
Oh, that means my plan is a total failure. That is... Oh well. The X2 antenna can be used to focus your alpha wave frequency thought patterns. And the sonic sound wave projecto emitter was never intended as a weapon. It was a medicinal vertebrae. In short, brains, a heart, and courage. Spine. I think there was a story once where a band of murderous thugs sought these things. They had them all the time in the story. Didn't stop them from murdering to get them. Yes, my overly aggressive cammed-up broadcast was designed to keep reinforcing the forget. Oh, and the get me the things to castrate your only possible escape. But I couldn't delete you or your arrival any more than I could the other visitors. Only so much suck. You're really quite difficult to ignore, you know. It's because you're, well, rather intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Indeed, the, good...
O maj. Wybaczyć się. Czy trochę ciągle. Stwierdzenie to chyba czasu. To jest... Aha. Gdzie tu jest? Aha.
I'm imagining all sorts of imaginary numbers right now.
Co się wiadomo? Tu przystanąłem. Cześć! Ja się nie podaję. A zadziała.
Well, well, look who finally dragged themselves in out of the wasteland. And where have we been, Crawling through bits of radioactive muck again?
Yep.
Ah, lovely. Figured that out, have we? Would you like a cookie?
Pewnie. Właśnie.
Well, that's a fine how do you do. Me, quote, dick, unquote. As if I'm the one responsible for the way you carry on gadding about the wastes. I'm not the one that makes us clamber around Technus-infested ancient vaults or go charging off to New Vegas on missions of ill-conceived revenge. And have we forgotten who got us shot in the head and buried in a shallow grave? Do you think I enjoyed that little moment? I most certainly am not. I'm the seat of all reason and logic in our little partnership. All those feelings that motivate you, that sense of righteousness and that rush you get when you help someone, do you know where those come from? Glands. They come from glands. Free of the tyranny of your ape-like and primitive endocrine system, I can see how foolish your motives are.
Dobra.
Well, maybe next time you hear me telling you that charging a nightkin with a penknife is a bad idea, you'll listen. I'm not going to lie to you. The prospect is definitely not that appealing. Look at it from my perspective. Here I have peace, quiet, and safety. Well, barring the odd rogue scorpion. In your head, I've got poison, radiation, grisly injuries, and biological functions. Do you know how much more you can get done when you're not constantly looking for places to urinate? It's quite a lot, I can tell you.
Aha. No właśnie. Z tym to co się... W sumie... Czy chyba rozumiem.
If you want me back, we need to establish some ground rules. First, showers! Second, regular checkups. Regular, mind you, and from a reputable doctor. That Julie Farkas woman, for example, she seems to know a thing or two. Third, you need to listen to me more than your hormonal choir and genitalian orchestra. Promise me that, and you've got a deal.
Aha. Mhm.
Well, certainly there might be some things I miss about being ambulatory. We have seen some incredible sights, haven't we? Jason Bright and his followers launching into the vast unknown. But still, given the tremendous, potentially life-ending peril that went along with those, yes, I'd rather stay here.
W sumie...
I suppose you're right. That does call certain assumptions into question, doesn't it? Indeed, quite the conundrum. How do you suppose we resolve it? You mean I'll stay in my tank and you'll stay in your skin? And we'll each handle our own areas of expertise? I certainly like the sound of that.
W sumie... Czy jak będzie?
Well, I suppose you've convinced me well enough. I'll rejoin your body if that's your final decision. Unfortunately, before we get to that stage of the proceedings, we have a problem. Even if I could settle myself back in your skull and reconnect all those pesky nerve endings, Dr. Mobius doesn't have the tools here. We would have to make use of Dr. Klein's lab, and I rather doubt the brains are inclined to share. And you believe them? Really? I know you were recently deprived of my fabulous advice, but... Really? Once I'm delivered into their clutches, they'll find a way past the radar fence and the whole Mojave will be their playground. And that is assuming, of course, that one of them doesn't take a fancy to our body and decide to slip his own brain into it instead. Don't seem so bad. They vivisected us just to see what would happen. Have you forgotten the lobotomites? The cyber dogs, I assume you saw those. Imagine that kind of science spread across the entire Mojave. Every man, woman, and child we've met reduced to a lobotomite. Is that what you want?
W sumie ja.
Well, I suppose I do miss those endorphin rushes when we save the day. All right, what's the plan? Right! Look out, think tank! This brain is coming out of its jar! I suppose now that we're reunited, you'll want to fill your torso up with those other meaty parts the think tank took from us. Personally, I think your upgrades are quite a bit better. But now that I'm with you, the Sync's autodock can plug them back in no problem. Right then, off we go. Klein will be in for a nasty shock when he realizes the pacification field won't work on a mind and body reunited.
Bezpiecznie cel mamy. Zakwesty. Dobra. Ja. Dobra. Wziąłeś. I co mi daje? Tak szybko sprawdzimy. Serce. W sumie... Nie wiem, czy się bardzo, ale na pewno czytam sobie na pewno chcę filmu z powrotem w głowie, to jest pewne. Wiatr na poświatę. Wybaczcie, wywaliło mi. Zdarzy się. Rzadko, ale się zdarza. Okej. Autodyptorze. Wymień się ciała. W sumie... Nie. Na pewno. Ojej. Dzięki. I am fucking ready.
The lobotomite returns. Our lobotomite. Has Dr. Mobius been
Nie do
denominated?
końca.
I recommend watching your tone with me, lobotomite. Now, your brain. And what could we possibly have to speak about? You have the brain. With it, we can finally leave this place. I cannot tell you how boring this place gets, chopping up the landscape and everything in it. And we have so many questions to ask your brain first. About this Mojave place. That is the most insane thing I've ever heard. There's no way Besides, there's no way such a thing could be accomplished. You speak the truth. And the decibel variation in your voice. It is How dare you breach the...
Chociaż... Właśnie.
A fight? Colleagues! Think tank!
Szkoda. Lubiłem cię. Zaraz. Wow. Nieźle.
Cessation of hostilities complete.
Trochę mi szkoda ze względów moralnych, chociaż nie, to ja dzielę, wcale mi nie jest żal. Mam być szczery.
As it had been in the years before the Great War, Big Mountain, the Big Empty, became home to one of the brightest minds of the 23rd century. The courier watched over the Big Empty for years to come, caring for it and keeping its discoveries safe until they were needed to help others. Which had always been Big Mountain's purpose. Past the laboratories and science, it had always been intended as a place to build the future of all mankind.
The courier had scoured much of the Big Empty, although secrets still remained in the crater's depths. Perhaps that was for the best, however. Curiosity, while sometimes rewarded for its efforts, often proves to be equally dangerous.
Dr. Mobius continued his research undisturbed in the Forbidden Zone. As much as he had attempted to create better scorpions, he tried the same with humanity, with considerably less success. These failures didn't bother him overmuch. Once the rush of mentats wore off, he forgot he had failed in any event. After all, the bright young mind who had come to visit him in the Forbidden Zone had already exceeded his expectations.
The sink atop the dome bustled with the voices of a small town, constantly chirping, arguing, and snarling at each other. Still, this all happened productively in the interests of its new owner. The Sync Central Intelligence Unit discovered, despite its inversion code, it was comforted by the sense of community the other personalities gave it.
The biological research station, obsessed with seeding everything in sight, requested a transfer to the X-22 Botanical Garden, so that it might, in its own words, sensually fertilize the garden's smooth contours. The garden sent back a polite refusal, saying it had prior commitments with a vault it had helped infect before the war.
The book chute continued to devour all seditious materials until it nearly choked on a paperclip. It adamantly maintained it was a Chinese paperclip, and the whole thing had been an elaborately orchestrated assassination attempt. Whatever the reason, it slowed down for a while, carefully appraising each document and clipboard that came to it.
The light switches continued to bicker and flicker.
This persisted until the day someone dropped a flashlight in the sink, and the two of them united in their hatred of the showboat.
The sink continued to ruthlessly scrub any particulate matter that came near it. Eventually, it gained access to the magneto-hydraulics plant and nearly flooded all the Big Empty in an attempt to scrub the crater clean.
The toaster continued its psychotic spree, reducing all appliances in range to scrap electronics and spare parts. After one of its more psychotic episodes, however, the other Sync personalities decided enough was enough and dumped the toaster in a bathtub. Sparking and hissing, the toaster swore its enemies would rue the day when they had bread and no way to toast it.
Muggy did his best to collect coffee cups, although in his quest, he accidentally trapped himself in Higgs Village. It might have been the end for poor Muggy. Except, he found it peaceful there, tidying up the kitchens of the think tank professors back when they had been flesh and bone. Well, except for Dr. O, who was an asshole for having created Muggy in the first place. Muggy left O's house deliberately dirty, punishing the dishes and cups that lived there in blind revenge for serving Dr. O.
Blind-eye old Jefferson eventually discovered a new sound. Silence. It only made him more filled with the blues than before. It was rumored by the other personalities that he had a brief fling with the light switches. Although he forgot their names much too often and was soon left in the dark as punishment.
Autodoc, always gentle and methodical, kept sewing up the courier in all the right places when the skin split open from repeated wear and tear. The Autodoc was just glad to have purpose again. It heard its simpler brothers and sisters who got shipped to the Sierra Madre, bored out of their skulls in that toxic dead city. In time, the Autodoc found a way to deactivate the Y-17 trauma harnesses, releasing the corpses they had held prisoner for almost 200 years.
As the courier ran through the X-8 facility multiple times, the computers analyzed the test subject's movements. Rather than performing a superficial observation, they realized the subject barely knew what communism was, or even what a high school was. This confused them for a time, until the facility finally realized that its research had succeeded. So it let its cyber dogs out into the wastes to help protect small communities from physical aggression rather than communist propaganda.
The infiltration program in X-13 continued to scan for the subject and the stealth suit prototype long after the test was over. Frustrated and unable to find its lost technology, X-13 expanded its network of laser tripwires, sensors, and robo-brains out across Big Mountain. This glittering blue light beam forest cleanly bisected anything that entered its depths, slicing them into small segmented parts for easy disposal.
The courier, organs intact, continued onwards, a little less heavy of step, but with all the organs in the right places, as they should be. After all, brains can develop a life of their own when left to their own thoughts, and the courier's brain was more clever than most.
The think tank basement, filled with lobotomized robotical frames of the doctors, now served as a graveyard. The monitors had recorded the battle in its entirety, including the think tank's final, shrill, terrified screams, whimpers, and pleas for mercy. They broadcast these humiliating last moments as a warning to anyone approaching the perimeter that other smarty pants were not welcome. The courier was the inheritor of the Big Empty, and there was room for only one will in the halls of the think tank dome.
There is an expression in the wasteland, old world blues.
It refers to those so obsessed with the past they can't see the present, much less the future, for what it is.
They stare into the what was, eyes like pilot lights, guttering and spent, as the realities of their world continue on around them.
Science is a long, steady progression into the future. What may seem a sudden event often isn't felt for years, even centuries to come.
In the times following the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, however, old world blues took on a new meaning.
Where once it was viewed as a form of sadness, nostalgia, it became an expression describing the potential for the future.
It can be easy to see science as evil, technology unchecked as the source of all ills, all misfortunes.
With the courier at the helm, science became a beacon for the future. There was old world blues, and new world hope. And hope ruled the day at Big Mountain.
We could say more, but the stories in the Big Empty speak for themselves. Now armed with the transportal Ponder, the courier could return to the dome at any time and crack open the secrets of the Big Empty one by one. The sink sat vigilant, waiting for its master to return, shoes covered in Mojave dust. Only one road yet remained, and it was one the courier had to walk alone.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Level up. Pięknie. Ale dobra, tutaj podniosę. Może coś... Coś takiego było fajnego. Nie. Nie. To się może przydać w sumie. Ja...
Might I be safe in the assumption that matters with the think tank have been satisfactorily computed vis-a-vis your residence in this domicile?
Włącz.
Do you, sir? Well, if that is sir's wish. In addition to managing the any good sir might... Very...
Dobra. Nie. Będzie chyba już nie. Wjazd, martwię. O, dobra, sprawdźmy. Oczywiście wiem, że to jest siedziba wicesa. Patrzcie. Tu jest jeszcze sporo do zwiedzania i wszędzie byłem, obiecuję wam, że poeksplorujemy tyle, ile się da. Oj.
Sir's accoutrements are precisely where sir has left them, and should the toaster say otherwise, I remind sir that it is a waste room.
Ha ha ha.
I trust matters regarding your brain were resolved to your satisfaction.
Yep.
And rightly so.
Czemu da... Obciąć włosy? Oj, nie. Dobra. Wtedy co? Kończymy.
Are we being watched?
Bardzo mocno. Sprzęgiem psychopatyczny toster, właściwie świata, maszyna. Nie wiadomo co. Ludzie. Kosztem bolesnym. Tu powinny być mózgy, ale mamy go przy sobie. Sobie zostawię, jak moje wysiądzie. Dobra. Więc jest tyle ciekawych rzeczy, że eksplorowania. Znajdę coś ciekawego. Nagram wam odcinek. Dowiemy się o wiele.
Soon the day will be at hand! I will ride forth at the head of my armies, and we will crush our foes and hear the weeping of their small appliances.
Aha. Dobra. Trzymajcie się. Dzięki za oglądanie. I jest.